Hello everybody and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. I'm your host Jez FM. For people new to the podcast, the Magical Learning Podcast is a podcast that looks at important topics in business and life and breaks them down in a fun and lighthearted way. This week is no different. We're focusing on collaboration with Ann Braithwaite. Now, if you like Rolling Stone metaphors, if you like interesting stories about air traffic control and how you can get two people that don't get along to make the perfect air traffic control team, this is the conversation for you. We had so many laughs on this one. So if you want to learn about collaboration and its power, I can't direct you to any place better. Enjoy this conversation. And as always, everybody, have a magical week. The shuttle has landed. Welcome, everybody, to the Magical Learning Podcast, and that's because we were just talking about a different podcast, which I think we'll have to touch on, Anne, at some point shortly. But first, let's check in with Danette. Danette, how are you going this week?
Yeah, good, Jez. Lots of travel this week, so been to Canberra, been to Wagga this week as well. Finally at home for the weekend, which very excited about that. And it is a beautiful winter's day today, so very, very grateful. How's your week been, Jez?
Yes, my week has been good. I'm doing work with the Adapt podcast, which Danette hosts, and also the Magical Learning Podcast. Those have been a bit revamped, so if you check out the video of both of them, they're both looking very schmick. But I also have been doing some additional video work for a basketball team, a local basketball team, Coburg Basketball here in Melbourne. And I got a GoPro recently, so I was excited to do some sports footage with it. And I took it yesterday to sort of do a bit of an interview with someone, and it ended up being a very somber interview because it was this person's 350th and last game. So it was an interview that was kind of reflecting on his career. So I got that in GoPro HD, but I don't know if I fully utilized the GoPro's full features on that video. But still, great week otherwise. And
Love
Anne, yes, thank you. Anne, how's your week been before we get into everything?
Yeah, it's been good too, thanks, Jez. Much like Danette, I've been travelling, so I've been to the Gold Coast this week, and that was my first time there. It was colder than I anticipated, but that could have been because I was mainly in a conference room where they seem to have some sort of penguin-like approach to the system there, and everyone had their coats on. But we did get outside a couple of times, so that was nice.
They should call it the Cold Coast. Anyway,
honestly, totally misled about the Gold Coast, I have to say. But no, it was all good. But I'm back home now and really looking forward to a weekend here at home. And we're putting some big trees in this weekend, so I'm very excited about that. That of course requires to dig some very big holes, but hey, it's good. Good to be outdoors.
Yeah. That's it, and not in an indoor Gold Coast conference room at 0 degrees Celsius. It sounds like
penguins need not apply. Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, Anne, we are so excited to have you on. Before we get into everything today, I was just going to ask, for people that may be being introduced to you for the first time, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. It's always quite difficult, this, because I have somewhat of a mongrel background, it's fair to say. I have been geographically promiscuous in my life and lived in many places and indeed countries, and I've been a bit the same with my career. So I started out as an air traffic controller back in the day, and that was a 10-year career, which was really great to do. And I don't know if we'll get to it today, but I've got a great story about being collaborative in that environment. You cannot hide in an air traffic control tower from colleagues that you may not really like all that much, but it's quite important that you do your job well. And then after that, I put on a backpack, and during that I put on a backpack and went wandering the globe for 12 months and decided that I wasn't going back to air traffic and I was off to do more new adventures. And by many hops and jumps through management roles and large consulting firm roles, have ended up working for myself for the last years now, 14 years maybe, as an independent consultant, and really helping people understand complex systems and how you make change within a system which brings us fully to collaboration. And so that's one of the key elements of that.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. We love a little bit of a circuitous route, taking the scenic route through the career there and picking up a lot of different things along the way. So we're very excited to see how that all plays out. Before we get into today's questions from the team, I was just going to say, you were just touching on how collaboration sort of can be incorporated in those things. But do you want to talk about how you came up with the topic, the collaboration effect?
Sure. What I have noticed, so we talked about the countdown right at the start, and a couple of the podcasts I listened to, one is Ancient History, nerd alert, and also the History Podcast, which is Dan Snow in the UK, BBC podcast, and they have a mashup of things from history, including the countdown to one of the first shuttle launch, and it always lights me up because I remember watching that back in the day. And so throughout history, we've seen massive shifts, some good, some not so good, both involving collaboration. But some of the world's most complex problems have come about because people got stuck in collaborating. We've all been through the pandemic. A vaccine for the pandemic, for the COVID, was developed in record short time. It's interesting to know that malaria kills upwards of 600,000 people globally annually and has done for decades, and we've only just come up with a vaccine about 2 years ago. So when we collaborate, we can do amazing things. When we collaborate, things like the Berlin Wall go up and they come down again. When we collaborate, women like us got the vote, didn't it? When we collaborate, amazing stuff can happen, stuff that's seemingly impossible, but once the right people get together working on the right things and bringing all their talents together and all their thinking and generate new knowledge, what I call mind sharing, then we can do amazing stuff. And collaboration's at the heart of making big systemic changes, and that's what attracts me to it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that sounds perfect to talk about today, Anne. So I think without further ado, let's not even give this any more of a countdown. Let's just jump right into the questions. So I'm going to start with Danette. Danette, you got some questions for Anne, so tell us a bit about your questions and how you chose them.
And you know I'm always curious, so I always have at least 2 questions. So my first question is, what is your definition of collaboration? Because often people aren't really sure what is collaboration, what's not collaboration.
Yeah, sure. And it's so true. So at the conference, I think I could have counted collaboration used in about, I don't know, even 20 different ways on Monday when I was there speaking on the collaboration effect. And so what is collaboration? Collaboration is when we are working together and we're very synergistic. So the sum of the parts is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Tangle up on my analogy there. It's a little less of what it is than when it is. So we need to use collaboration on complex problems for which we don't already have a ready answer, for which there's not a good or a best approach that's already been established and tried, and we know that's really good. We use it in environments where we've got to invent our way through something, and we've got to trial and test things out and learn from them as we go. And for me, that's where the magic comes in, or the magical learning, as you guys might call it. Versus teamwork, which I contrast it with, which is more about execution. Teamwork, rather than invention, is execution. So we're executing on something that we probably know how to do, or there's a best method or a best approach, or we've tried it before. And we are really focused in the world of complicated problems. Now, complicated and complex are really interchangeable as well in common usage, but complicated means there's some sort of order to it. Complicated are things like chess, like launching the space shuttle, like even noughts and crosses. It's a simple but complicated piece. So in chess, there are multiple million moves that you can do, but you can count all of them and you can have strategies and approaches, as the grandmasters will attest to. In the complex world, there is no proven way path forward. It only makes sense in hindsight. And so we've got to try things, test them out. And that's where we've got to collaborate, because we don't know the answer yet and we've just got to try our way through it. So that's how I like to separate out collaboration and teamwork. Now, more on collaboration. if that all sounds a bit academic and nerdy, let's talk about the Rolling Stones. So the Rolling Stones, when they start their idea of being a band and being super rock stars, they didn't start out by, Mick Jagger didn't sit down and give himself a project plan that had an objective in it that said, write a timeless hit that will survive for 50 years and become the anthem of generations of people and will even transition a seismic shift to a digital age where music will not be on vinyl, but it will be on some sort of bits and bytes and coming through the sky. He didn't write that down. Neither did he book Wembley, then sell some tickets, then work out a list of songs and then write them. He didn't write Satisfaction at the end of that. And indeed, he didn't write Satisfaction before he got a band together. And he couldn't get a band together until he found some people to be in the band. And those people were people who complimented him. He couldn't play the drums, so he needed Charlie Watts. They shared an interest, and they got busy collaborating, or jamming, as they would call it. A decade later, when they're playing the big stadiums, when they're rocking Wembley and bringing the stage down, you betcha that's teamwork. They weren't inventing on the fly. They knew exactly what they were doing. Their eyebrows, the wiggle of the guitar, the big arms, the whoop whoop to the crowd, it's all rehearsed. They know exactly what that means. One signal might mean time to bring it down. Another signal might chorus again, the crowd is going nuts. But they all know that without having to talk about it. So that's my separation.
Love that. That is so good. And just the way you explained the Rolling Stones thing is fabulous. So then my next question is, today's topic is about the collaboration effect. So you shared a little bit about it. Do you want to share a little bit more?
Sure. So it is the magic moment in the collaboration effect. And it's funny that we started talking about launches and space shuttles because I describe it like the gravity assist you get when you go around the moon. So the gravity assist, the pull of the moon, or even a planetary assist, here's your spacecraft going through and it gets pulled in to the gravity of a galactic body, gets pulled in, and then as it goes through the gravity, momentum gains and then accelerates around the other side and sometimes changes course, or we think about the trajectory may change or alter. So for me, the collaboration effect is about that. It's about creating a gravity assist that comes from the power of people working in that synergistic way and that collaborative dynamic that it creates. Now, there's a but in there. The but is, to create that collaboration effect, we've got to do things in the right order. And we often do them in the wrong order. In fact, our institutions drive us to do them in completely the wrong order. They say, write your objective, book Wembley, then sell some tickets, write some songs, and get a band together. Because now we know what we want to do. But then the band goes, well, I don't want to play drums, I want to do saxophone. Maybe I'm better at this or that, right? So the collaboration, we've got to go through what I call the zone of doubt. And I'm not sure, I might be jumping into other questions, so let me know if I am. The zone of doubt is the bit that happens at the start. It's the go slow to go faster bit. It's the bit where we connect with each other, just like Keith Richards and Mick Jagger did at the Dartford platform on the tube on a windy, wet London morning. And if you've been to Dartford, I can tell you from personal experience, it's far from rock and roll. But there, Keith saw Mick had a copy of a Muddy Waters album and thought, this is the guy who likes my kind of music. So then they got together with the likes of Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman, and they hung out at places like the Marquee Club. They got busy creating their own sound. So that gelling of the people working on stuff that they were interested in, willing to put the effort in, and able to do something about it, starts to create that gelling. So that takes time. And in that time, in that what I call the zone of doubt, why is it the zone of doubt? Because at that time, in our institutions, people want project plans, they want deliverables, they want 2-week time-boxed results and progress against something that we don't even know what we're building yet. And it gives you great comfort to know I've got deliverables, even though they might not be the right ones and we might be building completely the wrong thing, and we've got a plan. Great, we've got a plan. We know that next month we'll probably change it because the goalposts will move and someone's priorities will change, or there'll be a change at the senior leadership team and the plan won't stand up for more than insert time frame here. But it gives us comfort. So for a while, it looks like these sort of traditional approaches to complex problems are working and they're better, except they're not, and then they fall off. Now, what happens is that the go slow part of the collaboration picks up, much like the rocket, pulls through and outperforms every single time. Traditional approach is a steady line trajectory. We slingshot effect through the collaboration, but we've got to hold on for the ride through the zone of doubt. That's the collaboration effect.
I love that. And again, love your use of the Rolling Stones to explain that too. It's fabulous. So I will say thank you, Anne, and hand back to Jez so we can ask some more questions.
Hey, Anne, I'm actually just going to disappear for 1 second because what you were just talking about has reminded me of something. So I'll be back in literally a second. I'm just grabbing a book.
Can't wait. The suspense is killing us. Here it comes.
I'm back. All right, so what you were talking about really resonated with me when I read this book, which is called The Big Book of Basketball. It's a nice paperweight for every other bit of paper in your house. And one of the crucial bits of that book is about the last team to beat Michael Jordan's team. So this team's called the Detroit Pistons, okay? And the whole crux of the book is why did they beat him? And it's about this thing that he calls the secret, which is what the captain of the team said. It's the secret, and it's that they were a good team because no one was the best player. They were all trying to work together, and that combined factor made them impossible to stop for other teams. So when you were talking about that, it just instantly resonated to the secret of NBA basketball, Anne. You've cracked it as well.
Cracked it. And Jez, you might be interested because here in New Zealand, the All Blacks are kind of a thing. There's sort of a religious kind of movement here. And many years ago, one of the coaches famously said, give me a champion team over a team of champions any day. So, yeah.
Yes. It's exactly right. Great. Well, and it's great. It's just relevant everywhere. Let's continue going, though. Let's jump into Graham's question here. So Graham sent this one in, and he's asked, where have you seen collaboration overdone in an organisation, and what was the outcome?
So I think collaboration overdone is not collaboration at all. I think it's where we get into the myths of what is collaboration. So we think collaboration is about sitting around the campfire, holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and doing some trust-building exercises. So sometimes it feels like that, and it's really icky, and no one really wants to be there. We think it's about having to like everybody, so we kind of try and force people to get on and disclose and be friends and yada, yada, yada. And it's not about that either. That helps, but it's not about that, right? The other thing we do is we think that collaboration is something like this. We just get online and magic will happen all by itself. Or we put people in a room, or we give them Miro boards or post-it notes, and we are collaborating because we're sitting there together talking about stuff. Well, that's not collaboration. That could be a meeting. It could be an argument. That could be people in Parliament ranting about something. It could be any of those things, right? So, but they're not collaborating. And so I think we confuse collaboration with some of those things. It's none of those things. Collaboration's hard. And yet, for humans, it's a natural talent that we all have. We're all really, really good at it. But when we get to work, half our brain shuts down and we get all linear and logical and think every problem's a complicated one, so therefore there must be a best answer and we can do it. And then we wonder why it's not working, and it feels like we're over-collaborating because we're having more meetings and more stuff and more Zoom calls and more Miro boards, and just throw some more post-it notes at it and that'll fix it. But we're not actually collaborating, we're just doing more of the same stuff. Right? So that's what I think over-collaboration might look like.
Yeah, very interesting. It's fascinating. I like the phrase "throw some post-it notes at it." It feels, I understand what you're going for there, and it feels very true. I think I've seen that approach before.
Nothing like I'm a big fan of post-it notes. Don't get me wrong, but just let's not scattergun them and use them because it's fun. Let's do some real stuff.
Yeah. And occasionally writing "kick me" on your friends and then sticking it on their back is always a good one,
Always good. Always good. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, I might jump into my question here because it's kind of coming off of a sort of slightly similar approach, which is that why do you think that some people see the word collaboration and feel negatively towards it? How can we shift that view? And the reason I ask this just quickly is because I have remembered being at uni and I always loved team projects. It was something it was one of the things I actually liked. I liked doing a bit of collaboration, but I knew people that hated them. And so, yeah, absolutely hated them. So I guess I was just wondering, a bit more about that insight and how you can change that approach.
Yeah, I'll give you, I've got two things buzzing in my head from that, Jez, which is I was the opposite of you. It's like, get off my project. I'm just carrying you lot. Get off. I'm just carrying you. Right? So that was part of my mindset. And I've got a client right now who I will not name, but is totally that same mindset, right? Working in a collaborative process. It's like, actually underneath all of that, so I don't want to carry these people. They're a bit rubbish. I'm not going to hold that together. I'm a bit clever. But I think the real one, I think Urban Hippo's got a really great definition of collaboration, which is an unnatural act practiced by non-consenting adults. And I think that's how it feels a lot of the time, right? Get in this room and collaborate. I have to like Jez. He's a real pain in the neck. I don't like Jez. I don't agree with him. I think he's full of rubbish. And he's just here to suck my brain and get up the ladder on my back. That's what I'm thinking about Jez, right? Or we're just put in this environment and there's nothing around it. So people think it's a crock, they think it's an HR thing, they think it's nonsense, they think it means I have to agree with everybody, and I really don't. They think it's just a way through to avoid dealing with the really hard stuff. And so what I say about collaboration is it's not about getting on, it's about getting on with what matters. Now, trust me, it's much easier for people getting on to some extent, and I expect everyone to act in a professional way when they're at work. So that's really what we're talking about. So people hate it because it's not well done, as a summary. We don't do it right.
Yeah,
we just think because we're humans and we know how to collaborate, we'll throw them in a room and it'll happen, forgetting those little swipe cards that we use to get into the office shut down half of the brain, and the half of the brain that knows how to collaborate. It's a theory.
Well, one thing that you did miss before when you were saying all the things how I wanted to sort of climb over you in the corporate ladder, you also forgot that I also want to steal your work lunch. That's the other thing. You bring in good yogurts, so I want to smash those.
You want my lunch, you want the promotion, you're actually a bit lazy. You're just here because there was another thing you were trying to avoid going to. All these things are happening. It's like...
That's it. Well, that's great, Anne, and thank you for that as well. It's so fascinating. It's really interesting how much of this conversation is what collaboration isn't, which I find very interesting because you're right. I thought collaboration was obvious, and as you're going through all these items, I'm going, yeah, you're right, actually. This is very interesting. What a fascinating topic. Let's jump into Marg's question here. So Marg has asked, what are some ways in which you can boost collaboration in a team?
Cool. Have a gnarly problem. Have a gnarly problem is a really good way to boost collaboration in a team. Now, there's lots of gnarly problems. So, what am I talking about? A gnarly problem that you cannot fix on your own. A gnarly problem that means I need a drummer because I can't drum, and I need a bass player because I can't play the bass, and I need someone on keyboards. And for me, I need a guitarist as well because my limits of my talents are singing. So I got a whole band I need to get together, right? I'm good in the shower, but that's it, right? I need the band. So what's the gnarly problem that's going to take more than just you to solve it? And when you say within a team, I think the best way to improve collaboration within a team is to collaborate with other teams on problems that require multiple teams to work on them. Because in a team, you're a team. You're supposed to be executing things. You're not necessarily inventing. So let's think about what collaboration requires. It requires a gnarly problem that everybody cares about, but nobody owns. And in my work, I've done that everything from within a working group, within an organisation, to across organisations, to between organisations. And in fact, the conversation on Monday was between countries. There are problems in the world today that countries can't solve on their own. And that's what we're talking about. It's a problem everyone cares about, nobody owns it, and it's going to take all of us to get it done. So that's where you can improve collaboration. So that's the first bit. Have a problem that looks like that. If it's not that sort of problem, you don't need collaboration. You need teamwork. Teamwork's good communication, good coordination, and good controls. But for collaboration, you've got to invent your way out of it. So know when you need collaboration. I ran a diagnostic with a client recently about their collaboration DNA. How collaborative were they? Not very. But we also found out that they didn't have to be a lot of the time. And in fact, asking them to collaborate would be detrimental because we just needed them to execute really well, and their real problems were coordination, control, and communication. And there were only a few things that really needed collaboration. So know when to use it and what it's for, and try not to mix it up with things like teamwork, control, and communication, because they're different, right? So let's use them on the problems that's best for.
Yeah, that's a great insight. If you need to invent your way out, let's look at collaboration. I think that's a good kind of way to sort of frame this as well, as to because there's so many things that it's not. You're right. So there's good little like rules of thumb there.
So
let's jump into.
I'll just build that out back to the Rolling Stones, because I think there's some grey area in between, right? So let's say we're jamming, right? So when do you need to jam? When we need to create new music, come up with a new sound, get that dreaded second album out, right? It's like, oh my God, or you want to try something out. You then rehearse, and in rehearsal, you're moving from collaboration to teamwork, to execution. So in that, there's some grey area in between. So I didn't want to just leave us with the impression that it's completely this or that. So in between, we're moving, we're jamming. In rehearsals, you might come up with a new riff or a new way of putting something together. Something accidentally happens. So through that rehearsal, we're still doing some invention. It's a bit collaborative, but our focus is moving us towards execution. So I just wanted to go around that loop before you moved on, because I think that's important as well to improving collaboration.
Good clarification there. Yeah, very helpful. Let's jump into Allegra's question. So this was a slightly different approach to the questions, but I liked it. What was the moment when you realized that collaboration was something that meant a lot to you?
Yeah, I was pondering that question because you'd sent them through to me, and I was going, did I have a moment, or did I just know at a deep level that this is what we need to do? And so I was reflecting on that, and I was going back through some conversations that I have. I think I'm a natural collaborator, and that's come out over the years of the way I operate, the way I work, and feedback that I've been given. So for me, I get bored with problems that require repeat execution. I have a brain that likes gnarly problems that we don't know how to fix. Therefore, I know I can't fix them all. And I like getting in a space, Jez, where you and I are collaborating and not just delivering my essay for uni, because basically there is a right answer, somebody's already written it, and we go back three years of uni exams, we'll figure it out. But what is it? What's different? And so for me, coming to the realization that I get bored quickly with straightforward problems, and knowing that to get through them, I need other people. And I just love what happens when you get people in a room, because something, and I'm going to use a magical word again, magical happens because something new comes up. Pennies drop, people have ideas, and don't get me wrong, sometimes this can be quite fraught, people get quite heated about it all. They have their perspectives, but I actually like that because I know it's kind of in the alchemy of that and the crucible of that good stuff comes from. So I think it's been a quiet realization rather than a mic drop moment for me over the years. I've just found over the years that's how we solve big problems, not by any other way.
That's a great point. And you know what? I think, because I feel the same way as you, I like thinking of problems in sort of different ways. I don't like doing repeat tasks. But we did have a guest on recently, Christopher Miller, a couple of weeks ago, and he gave us this key insight, which was find people that do the stuff you don't want to do, because there are people that want to do it, you know? So just, if you are struggling with these problems, find those people, because there are people that are excited to do the repeat tasks.
Totally are. I've got a mate who loves spreadsheets. Oh my Lord, is that possible? Loves them. Not in my world, never. She, though, loves it.
And knows Christopher as well.
I do. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's great. All right, well, let's jump to our last question here from the team, which was from Kanika. And she asks, where do you think more collaboration could be valuable day to day in the world?
Oh, gosh. At home, in our communities, and all the way up to governments, right? So governments probably sound all way too hard and scary. So let's go home, right? So let's go to work. Let's go to those problems where you go, I don't know how to do this. Let's get brave about saying, I don't know how to do this and I need some help. Or I'm really interested in contributing to this issue or this problem, but I don't feel like I can because I haven't got all the answers, and maybe it feels all too big for me, or I feel like I don't have any agency in that. These everyday gnarly problems are the ones that ultimately will elevate a whole system up. They don't have to be bring down the Berlin Wall. They don't have to be come up with a vaccine for COVID. If we are looking at our own personal gnarly problems, things that feel a bit hard for us or with others, it could be something in your community that you go, God, would someone just do the thing? Oh, well, I can't do it on my own. Well, find some people who might share your interests. Find some common ground with them. Find out what really matters to you and them. What do you align on? What matter most that you are aligned around? So that's where we can start playing that as well. So I can think of an example just locally where people wanted the kids to have a better BMX bike park. And it took one person to start saying, I'd like to do this for the community. And people were chipping in. They were chipping in their time. Businesses were chipping in some resources. They found some land. Someone worked in the council. They just find all the different people. And you'll see these things in your communities all over the place. And the more the world gets complicated, fast and interconnected, the more we need to come back to our community bases and within our organisations and start applying those principles to the things that we're interested in, that we're willing to put some effort into, and that we're able to put some effort into. Because you could be interested in something and willing, but if you haven't got either some time, some money, some ideas, some friends who could help, a drummer you still feel a bit restricted. So find places where you've got all three of those things happening and you've got a chance to make a big impact. I think we've got all layers of problems. If you want to go and take on the UN, go for it. You want to build a skate park in your community, go for it.
And if you want to build a skate park at the UN, go for it. I reckon that's the way.
That's the idea that we need. So someone said on Monday, if I could have all the funding out of Australian federal government and I could spend it on street parties, that's what I would do, because we get every street in Australia connecting with each other and the people in their neighbourhood. Can you imagine what ideas could pop out of that and what would be possible?
That sounds great to me. Let's get that person in office ASAP. I think. Well, Anne, thank you so much for answering all our questions. I'm just going to grab some final thoughts here from Danette. So, Danette, did you have any final thoughts from today's conversation and the collaboration effect?
Oh, I love this conversation. I loved how you distinguish between collaboration and teamwork. And I really love how you've talked about, and I'll make sure I get the your zone of doubt. So rather than going, let's get really linear and go step by step, let's actually get the people together, get them sort of knowing each other before we try and do all of this is what we're trying to achieve. So, and I just loved your Rolling Stones analogies as well, or metaphors. Thank you so much. Such a great conversation. We're definitely going to have you back.
Thanks, Danette.
Yeah, and I also took a lot of notes. I mean, I also thought the zone of doubt was interesting as like a crucial part of collaboration. But I did have one note that was really important, and and also having a gnarly problem. I love that phrase. But the thing that I realized we haven't touched on, air traffic collaboration story.
Well, this is a story about if you don't like someone, right? Now, this is really a teamwork story, to be honest, but it was a moment of collaboration because we learnt from each other. So, early 20s, sitting in a control tower not too far from here, and I was working with a guy who I thought took a few too many risks. I thought he was just a bit brave with what he was doing. And for me, very, let's say, confident person. For him, I was way too conservative, really too conservative, which meant the planes were going slower than they could have been. And for me, he was so busy trying to get everybody everywhere fast that I was worried that he was running things a bit tight, as we used to say. And this one particular day, you can't really get away from anyone in a control tower. You kind of got to work through these things. Well, we both said what we thought about each other's approach to work. Like, you're like this, or you're like that. And go, yeah, we probably are. And I don't know by what gift of the universe I went, you reckon we could learn something from each other? Maybe that's the collaboration penny drop for me. And I went, what about this? If you think I can go faster, I could do something. There was another thing I could do to make this go faster. You tell me. But I reserve the right to not do it because it's my license. Because if something goes wrong in the air traffic world, you are personally liable, not the company, but you personally. On the other hand, if I think you're doing something that's just a little bit, shall we say, running it a bit tight, you'll at least consider it and listen. And the long and the short of that story is two things. One, we became the go-to team in the tower. So good collaboration leads to really good teamwork. So that's one thing. Collaboration will give you good teamwork. If there was a problem, the pilots wanted us to be the two in the tower when it happened. The other thing was, I still wouldn't have bothered to cross the street to say hello to him in the weekend, and we lived in a small town. And he, me. So, yeah, don't have to fall in love with the people you're working with, but you do need to work with them.
That really reminds me, back to basketball. Somehow this has been a very basketball-heavy conversation for me, but I was on a basketball team that won 2 mixed basketball championships at my uni, and we famously didn't talk to each other at all. At halftime, we were all loitering around doing our own thing, but we still played together well. So, sometimes collaboration can look different from different people. And did you have any final thoughts on today's conversation and the collaboration effect?
No, just other than to encourage people to find the things, find your gnarly problem and be brave. Go find some other friends. Find that person on the Dartford train station who's got some music that you might be interested in making, and go find them and get stuck in, because the world's on fire and we need you.
Well, Anne, I think that next time you and I should be in a band. I'll be Keith Richards, you can be Mick Jagger, and I was thinking we can perform exclusively in cold Gold Coast things, and we can be called the Frozen Stones. What do you reckon?
Frozen Stones. Yeah, I have been told that in the movie of my life I'll be played by Chrissy Hynde, so we maybe need to go down there. I don't think I can pull off Mick Jagger's vocals, but I could give Chrissy a good nudge.
Fantastic. And if people who listen to this, they're like, I need to get in contact with Anne. This was amazing. I need to learn more about collaboration. My team needs to collaborate. Where's the best place for people to reach out to you? And do you have any resources for people as well?
I do. So you can find me at annbraithwaite.com. Everything is there. What I do around the collaboration effect. You can read my snippets, a word given to me by an Australian friend, more correctly pronounced snippets in the Australian vernacular. And these came from a project where she would just sidle up to me and go, got a little snippet for you. And the little snippet was always worth hearing. So I hope I do her proud by providing little snippets. They're usually about a 3 to 5 minute read at best. Tales from everyday life that might be useful to you, and we focus in on some of these topics there.
Great. Well, I'm excited to read some of these snippets or snippets. I'm not sure which one it officially is, Anne, but thank you so... Thank you so much for being on today. It's been an amazing episode. I know we've had a lot of laughs. I've had a great time. To everybody that's been listening and sharing, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And as always, everybody, have a magical week.